I never say my name, Shatona Havoc, if that matters. I forget about that. I just feel like we're in the middle of a conversation, not like starting one when I sit down. So I'm just like wanting to get into all the books, and I forget minor courteous things like introductions and whatnot. So yeah, welcome back, and thanks for stopping in. I don't say thank you enough, and that's another thing. I am really grateful that you come and you chat and you interact with me, because then I get to talk about all the bookness, and that's kind of important. I'm just saying. So, but we're just talking about what I've read so far this much. I am unable to can. I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, sure, whatever. But this month, so far, we're almost 2 weeks in, just shy of it. And I've got 4, 5, 6. I think I've got 7 books, maybe 6 or 7. So I'm doing all right. Not massive amounts, but just as an update on like fall into faith and stuff. So I did finish one, which we will talk about. So I did my service. I'm in the middle of several books and about to start a couple. So this is my current pile of book stuffness. Let's start with, I will be starting my Chantal Reads All Day book tomorrow. So that's When the Meadow Blooms by Anne Gabhart. I think it's post-World War I. Yeah. 1918 influenza epidemic. So it's post-World War I. And then I'm also about to start, because I'm working on prayer right now, I'm about to start Sheltering Mercy by Ryan Whitaker Smith and Dan Wilt. I don't know anything about Dan Wilt, but I know that Ryan Whitaker Smith is Michael W., which I wonder if his middle name is Whitaker. Michael W. Smith's son. And all I know about Michael W. Smith is Friends, because everybody and their brother sang that song so much my junior and senior years of high school that I actually know what was then a contemporary Christian song. I can sing that one, because boy, did we ever sing that one over and over and over. But so yeah, I'm gonna start this, and basically it's just prayers inspired by the Psalms, one for each Psalm, and so I will be going through that. But before I did that, I wanted to kind of get into a rhythm with the Book of Common Prayer. I'm not good at the morning prayers. I haven't really grasped how to train my brain in that. Mostly because I am not coherent when I wake up. I never have been, even in high school, I just wasn't. So, yeah, but I have been consistent at the night prayers. I'm reading it as if, I was in an Anglican church and we were just following through I don't know how to use this book. I found a book on how, and I'm tempted to buy it, but part of me is like, really? But on the other hand, I don't know. So I want to study how this is used in the Anglican Church. I think it would be interesting. But I am loving just how much most of it is just sheer scripture. And what isn't is clearly rooted in scripture. The prayers are not, they're rich and they're meaningful. And yeah, they could become rote. I find myself when I'm tired, wanting to just plow through them, and I have to stop and back up a bit, but that's good because it makes me aware. I think I'm aware of doing that more than I am like when I'm writing in my prayer journal, because, and there you just keep going, and you're not focused on the fact that I don't want this to be a rote thing. And I think it could really become just kind of a check the box thing, because I'm so hyper aware of it. When I see myself heading that way, I stop it. And I don't see myself heading that way in my prayer journal. So sometimes I go back and I'm like, I clearly wasn't focused. I was just rambling basically to get it done, which is not good. But so this is actually doing the opposite of what the criticisms against it would be for me. And I don't know if that will always be true, but it's true right now. And then, so I have this, a diary of prayers. It's one prayer for each day of the year, collected prayers by different people. So Gilbert Shaw, Christina Rossetti, Lancelot Andrews, the preface to the Geneva Bible, the Eastern Church, William Langland. So St. Augustine. So they're just prayers, and there's one for each day of the year. So I started in November and have been going through one a day. Just, it doesn't take any time at all, but it kind of helps you see what things people have focused on, and that was pretty cool. And I just noticed that my painting has flopped over. I need to fix that. So anyway, and then I am still plowing through Matthew 24 Fulfilled by John L. Bray. The repetition is killing me. I keep catching myself skimming. When I catch myself, I go back a bit and start again. It's just so repetitious. The content is good. The presentation of the content, yeah, here's the deal. This isn't going to get a good rating for the presentation because it is cumbersome to read. And I know it's not intended to just be read. It's intended to be studied. But if there was less repetition, I would be pausing more and pondering more. But because he's just going to plow it through my brain one way or the other, I'm just not enjoying it. And don't get me wrong, I've understood some things, and it's really funny. The things that I've caught the most haven't been something he said, but something he said has made me think of something else, and I've gone, oh, that's what that's talking about. Oh my goodness. So it's not that I'm sorry I've been reading it, but yeah, not a big fan. I wish I had chosen something else, but hey, it'll be checked off the list. And I'm trying to decide if I'm even going to keep it. I don't know if I'll even keep it. It does have a few notes in there, so maybe I will, but part of me is like, why? I would flip through, check out those notes, and I may just do that and then get rid of it. And then I started on Moonberry Lake a couple nights ago by Holly Varni. This is her debut novel. It takes place in the Moonberry Lake world that she has created in Minnesota. And I'm just shy of halfway through. Okay. All right, so here's one. Congratulations to longtime Moonberry Lake resident Dorothea Svensson, who is thrilled to announce the birth of her 18th grandchild. She now holds the record for of most grandchildren of any living grandparent in town. The beaming grandmother boasts that the success of her family's procreation is due to long winters and few hobbies. Not that I've ever said that or anything. Do you have a hankering for haddock? Craving cod? Biting for bass? Longing for lutefisk? Salivating for salmon? Wanting walleye? Betty's Fish Shack is teeming with your choice. This week's special is 13% off your order if you say you have high cholesterol. Betty says, my fish will swim through your arteries and your heart will be happier for it. Reminder, every Tuesday, kids get one free fried fish, mystery fish on a stick. The people of On Our Knees Methodist Church are doing just that. Congregation members will be on their knees for the yearly fall cleaning of the church and landscape next Saturday. They're giving this advance notice so there will be no excuses. The same four people are tired of being the only ones to show up, so the project is being called Create in Me a Clean Heart, O God. Wipe clean the church and your conscience all in one day. Moonberry Lake's Little League Championship game was so close that many players and fans wanted to pull their hair out. Literally. Itching for the sectional title, the pint-sized boys were tickled to win. The tradition of throwing their caps in the air before every game spread not only their luck, but head lice too. All boys and their parents caught the glory of winning while tiny critters clung to their hair follicles. The victory celebration afterward included ice cream, hot dogs, and hairnets. The State Health Board did a surprise inspection of one of our local diners, name withheld. Sadly, the local hub lost its license and is no longer permitted to serve meat. Any other details are being withheld for privacy. Big news! Mike's Steak Wagon is closing, but he said he's thinking of turning the restaurant into a soup and salad buffet under new management. It's so good. It's so good. But that's just kind of indicative of everything in this entire book. It's just, I'm having so much fun. It's kind of what I needed right now. So this is a revel. So the faith element, you know, and when I talked to the gal, she was clearly not hiding faith in any stretch, but she is also showing that not everybody in Moonberry Lake is a Christian. You've got one gal who's kind of new agey a bit, and another gal who's just so grief-stricken that some of her thoughts, you're like, that's not biblical, but I really feel for you and I'll pray, kind of thing. And then you go, oh, wait a minute, no, this is fiction. We don't have to do that. Okay, yeah, that. Sorry, before I came out, I brought out my mug, and I have a kettle over on my little stove, and so I brewed me a cup of tea, and I'm thinking it might be just about time to take a sip. We shall see, we shall see. Let's see. Pretty much perfect. Awesome. And my daughter went to Bake My Day and got these little, I don't know what they are, but they're almond goodness, and yeah. So, yeah, cheers. They taste a lot like my mother-in-law's sugar cookies. They're so good. They're just so good. Okay, so now books that I have read and finished. Let's do the audiobooks first. We'll do that. Oh, another audiobook I'm listening to right now is Murder in Old Bombay by Nev March. And as of starting this, I'm 23% through it. Now, last night when I was listening, I was like, oh dear. Oh dear. I know, Neville. I know. I just said, oh dear, what am I going to do? Because, okay, so something came up and I thought, uh-oh. They're going to take this in a direction that I just don't, uh-oh. Because there had been a couple of, it's really kind of funny. There have been a couple of words that to Brits would be offensive that aren't to me. There have been a word or two that I didn't appreciate. And then I think just before I came in here, I heard an irreverent use of God's name. And so I was like, uh-oh. I don't want this to become consistent. There hasn't been anything too, horrible, but I don't appreciate that in particular. The others are like, really? But it doesn't claim to be Christian fiction. I'm trying not to be too persnickety as long as it just doesn't get vile. We've been there, done that, not going back. But then there was a plot point that is really, I don't want to say it's clever because now I'm like afraid of that word. But it was interesting, and it was something that would be a consideration, and yet I was afraid they were trying to just turn this into let's put modern issues into something that's taking place. Okay, so this is actually 1892. So with 1892, and they're dealing with this does this guy prefer men thing? I'm like, oh no, please just don't go there. But because of the plot, it would be an incredibly relevant point. And so I'm like, is this we're going to acknowledge that this could be a problem? Because you would ask this question at any time in history because of this situation. And so then I was like, okay, you're being oversensitive. As long as things just, they're using this just so far, so good. And so I got a little nervous, but I think I'm okay. So Murder in Old Bombay, the narrator's pretty good, and I'm actually enjoying the story. The story's interesting. The characters are great. And I think it's going to be all right. But there was a minute there There was a hot minute, let me tell you. The first one first audio that I finished was The Mitford Murders by Jessica Fellows. And I had thought that this was The Mitford Murders by Jessica Ellicott, who did the Beryl and Edwina mysteries. And so I was expecting to really like it, because I did really like those for the most part. And so I was like, And all right. Oh, that cooled off fast. Wow. I had to turn my heater off, so it must be chilling in here, and I didn't know it. So, okay. I want to make sure that I don't forget anything that I really wanted to say. So I started reading it, and I was thinking it was about 4 stars. And there was a lot to like in the book and a lot not to. The one Mitford girl, the main Mitford, I think her name's Nancy, she was awful. I mean, yes, she's immature. She's 16 at the opening of it, and she's obsessed with, she's going to be coming out, and she's going to be having her ball, and she's going to have all the men after her, and isn't this going to be great? And you're like, you are ridiculous. And she was so annoying. But the other children, some of them I actually kind of liked, but you don't get to see much of them. I didn't really care for the mother or the father, the Mitfords. I did like Louisa. And I liked, I think his name is Guy. I'm hesitant on Guy because I just read Fox, and so my brain is going, wait a minute. But I think his name was Guy. I liked him. And they had some really depth. They had some depth to their stories. The problem is that the Mitfords didn't. And, you've got these murders happening, and it's supposed to be connected with everything. And then I realized, oh my gravy, these Mitford peoples and this murder that happened on this train and all the stuff, it really, really happened way back when. And this author is trying to write a mystery that shows what could have happened. And so the more I listened to the author's description of what she did and how she got her stuff, I was like, oh my goodness, because she made a comment, and it could be British humor. You know how that can be very dry. My son is that way. And when you're not able to see someone's facial expression, it's kind of hard to tell. Are they just dropping a funny note, or is there more to it? I don't know. But she said, she thought she had figured it out, and this was the solution. Well, there are people, the real people that she's dealing with, that she's saying is guilty, and I'm just like, that's their families. That's got it. I don't know. It really, really, really bothered me the more I found out that this is actually a real case that she's writing about. I don't know why, because I have read other true crime things where people have speculated what it might have been, and it didn't bother me, but I think it's because of the other flaws in it. I think it all just kind of combined and just pushed. Louisa, like I said, she's 16 at the beginning, and it feels like a couple of months have passed. The pacing of it is weird. You don't have a clue as to how fast time is flying, because it feels like it's just been a couple of months. And now she's having her 18th ball. What? And seriously, like 2 days before the ball, this girl is a flighty, self-absorbed, man-obsessed person. And Louisa goes to her and says, hey, you got to watch out for this dude. And her response is, no, you're wrong. I love him. Everything's going to be great. Next day, I'll help you take him down. I'm like, what? It was just so unbelievable. I gave it 3 stars because I do like the characterization of those 2 people. But if I hadn't really, really, really liked Louisa and Guy and what she did there, and a couple of other fun, twisty things that she actually pulled off well, if I hadn't liked those elements as much as I did, it would have been 2. Because the more I reflected on it, the less I liked it. I won't be reading anymore by her. I feel like there might have been a word or 2 in there I didn't appreciate, but I don't remember it being chock full of them. So there was that one. And then next up on audio, I'm so excited. I got to read Benedict Brown. He has a new series, Marius Quinn. It takes place at the same time as the Lord Edgingtons. In fact, he referenced Lord Edgington twice. And I was just so excited because I really love Benedict Brown's mysteries. He's one of my favorite. It was just so cool to see kind of the interactions. He mentioned Agatha Christie, but it was just, he mentioned some of these other characters and stuff that other authors have done. And I was like, so, I mean, he might be my favorite modern or contemporary author who writes historical mystery at that time. It's got to be close between him and T.E. Kinsey. I really like him. The Lady Hardcastle, the Dizzy, whatever you call those. Can't remember those. I'm listening to the book. I'm loving this character. But so in this one, he's a detective novelist. He had an incredibly successful book, and then he gets writer's block. He can't write to save his life. And he finally gets his boss to agree to pay him £100 a chapter because he overextended himself after the success of that book. He bought an expensive car and an expensive house, and now everything's going to come crashing down if he doesn't get this book written. But on the other hand, so he meets a friend that he grew up with, a girl that he had wanted to marry outside his publishers, and she invites him to this house party for Christmas or New Year's. I guess it's New Year's. And it's you've got actors and actresses and directors and all these people at this party. She's there with her boyfriend, and he's not real happy about this boyfriend thing. It comes out, I don't think it's really a spoiler, it comes out that that's part of why he went lavish on this. She's the daughter of some nobility, and he didn't have much. And so he's basically trying to prove that he's worthy of her, and this matters to her. But he's a guy and he's being stupid. And I really love the fact that because I'm not a big first person narrator person. I don't really like it. This is one of the cases that shows just the beautiful strengths of first person narration, because anytime a book has a first person narrator, there is definitely an element of an unreliable narrator in it, because it's all your perception of things or what you're willing to share with the reader. And so having it like that just keeps things interesting. So stuff comes out and you're like, you hid that from me. So it was really fun. But then we're getting close to it. He's figured out, and he's trying to figure out, he doesn't know how to do this. He does not know how to be a detective, but because he's written a detective book, everybody expects him to figure out who killed this guy in this house. Snowstorm, so they're forced to stay, people getting picked off. I mean, the whole 9 yards, right? So he's doesn't know what he's doing. And then he figures something out. And because this thing is true, he says, this happened. The policeman shows up, tells them, they arrest the guy. And the whole time I'm going, no. This is wrong. You went the easy route. That is not what happened. I was mad because I was just like, no, this is not what happened. I didn't write this book, right? But I was doing it. I was like, And then if I had been reading a physical book, I would have figured out right away that, oh, no, there's a twist. But because I wasn't, and because it was so well written, I was living. All along, I'm going 4 or 5 stars, 4 or 5 stars, 4 or 5 stars. And then, boom, I'm like, 2 stars. I'm mad. I probably would have done 3 because I loved the characters. I loved everything. I loved that he didn't know what he was doing. A little bit like Chrissy from Lord Edgington, but a little bit better. But I loved so much. But I was so mad because I'm like, you took the cheater way. I can't believe you did it. I was really mad at him. And then I was proven right, which is always nice. It's so ridiculous, but the way he did it is best because it solves some other things that are in there, and it shows that the red herring isn't a red herring, even though it feels like one, and even though it acts like one, it still isn't. It's just that you've got more than one mystery going on, and you don't know it until you know it, and it was so great. I had so much fun. I'm not going to say that they're great literary masterpieces. Will they ever, stand up as long as, like, I don't know, Sayers or Christie? Maybe not. Probably not. But frankly, I find them a whole lot more fun. And so I just loved it. Ended up with 5 stars. Best. It was so much fun. So much fun. Okay, now, physical books. The first one I finished in November was for the Fall into Faith. I had a hard time putting this down. This was the service prompt because she is a missionary and he was in the army. So, I figured that's not the service that they were talking about, but still, he also performed a service for Christendom by, collecting all of his brother's works and making sure that they were preserved, etc. So I'm going to count both of them, but at least for most people, she's going to count. But this was phenomenal. I got to understand not just Varni Lewis, not just this woman, but I got to understand C.S. Lewis in new ways as well. One of the negative reviews that I saw on it, I think it was 2-star, it could have been 1. The reviewer said that it was really, really, really hard to follow, and it was just a slog, and she just thought it would take forever and ever and ever to get through it. I don't understand why. It was not difficult at all. In fact, it was compelling. They had conversations about music. They totally disagreed on music. I felt like Deanna Durbin's It Started With Eve, when she's talking with the dad of the house, and this big millionaire tycoon type dude, and she's talking with him, and she's like, Tchaikovsky? And he's like, yeah, we disagree on proms. And it was just kind of that feeling. It was like they totally disagree. The music she loves most is what he hates most, and vice versa, but then there are other things that they totally agree on, and they like spur each other, and it just there are things I want to say that I feel like I would be giving stuff away, so I won't, but there are a few things. So let me see. They're talking about charity begins at home, and how people say that, but they don't, that so often people don't even start the charity at home. And so then I think Blanche is the one who says, charity begins where there is most need. That's where the Good Samaritan started. And it made me, I made a little note. Charity may begin at home, but it shouldn't end there. And that was something that I just had never really thought of. But then there was, was it her still? Yeah, still her. They're talking about the changes in the liturgy and stuff. And she said, "It is all very good, but I often find myself wishing that our modes of worship could stay put so that we could get on with our praying instead of adapting to new ways." I mean, I kind of felt it, you know. I was like, yeah, I get you. The letters to Malcolm, he was talking, and she asked if there was a real Malcolm. And he's like, no, there's no Malcolm. I've always wondered that myself, but I never remembered to look it up. So that I got an answer. And then Blanche, I find that God usually points the way when one genuinely tries to find his will, even in matters like this, which are not a choice between right and wrong. And that's just about a gal trying to decide if she should go on vacation or not. I mean, it's pretty simple. We live by faith with a vengeance. I loved that. But then, okay, I did put a flag in here. There is a book that is mentioned. I'm going to read this section because I want to know, has anyone read this? I found it online. I'll see if I can find that link again, where you can read it online. But she says, I remember hearing on the radio of a woman who was in solitary confinement for 7 years under some Nazi order, who refused to let her mind go to seed. She recited poems, novels, etc. And she walked herself, counting the yards into miles and taking imaginary walking tours all over the continent, reliving old experiences. She also made an abacus from bits of chewed bread and slivers of timber from her cell and did complicated arithmetic. No story of her making a spiritual stock taking. Anyway, it's called 7 Years Solitary about Edith Bone. So yeah, I just like, really whoa. So I want to know more about that book. But there was just a lot of really good stuff in here. It was fascinating. It was charming. Just their friendship, and you can see this slow progression from very formal. She just wrote to ask an opinion on what she should do with all the, because every time she would write a letter, she would make a carbon copy as she typed it, and she kept all those copies. That's why they have both sides of the correspondence. And so she wanted to know, do I keep this? Do I burn this? What do I do with this? Do you have an opinion? And he was, you know, he was like, you want that published. People are going to want to read this. I don't know. I just, there's so much. There's so much. One thing they had a question. It was like, Mrs. Pilot, how did her dream or vision and the message she sent to her husband, how did the disciples find out about that at all? How? And it starts making it there was just all of those things. So now the author, Diana Pavlik Glyer, I think she's a professor at Azusa Pacific, and a mutual friend of ours got me in contact with her. Now, this is not fiction. This is actual, this is nonfiction, but we're gonna chat on Because Fiction about stuff like this and how epistolary novels, and because this feels like one. I mean, this feels a little bit like Meet Me at the Museum, or not quite Guernsey because it's not just the two of them, but it just feels like a novel, even though this is actual correspondence. So 5 stars all the way. Loved it. And I will definitely be reading this one multiple times. It was so good. I think next I finished Elizabeth Goudge, The Bird and the Tree. It's the first of the Elliot family trilogy. And this book I thought I was going to hate. So the first quarter to third, especially the first quarter, it was kind of like all set up. She really, I don't know, guys. I love Goudge's writing. I love the way she is not afraid to confront real things that are ugly. I love that about her. But I gotta say, she loves her history, and she isn't a good editor as to what should be put in. That doesn't show up as much here as it does like in Towers in the Mist, but there's an awful lot of setup, info dumpy at the beginning of some of them. Not all of them, but of some of them. This was one. And I understand why she did it. But I got on my thing with my friend and I'm like, should I continue? I'm starting to get frustrated. And by the time she got back to me, I think this was the one. By the time she got back to me, I'd already gotten kind of into it. And I was like, oh, okay. We're good. We're good. But so in this one, it's the first book. The matriarch of this family buys this house and sets it up. I mean, she and Stevenson both really like to create a kind of a world in a home and make that home the center of the family's life. And this book, that's what she does with it's Dame Rocher or something. I don't know how you pronounce it, but so she has this place. She has decided she's leaving it to her, and she has favorites, and everyone knows it. Her favorite grandson, and then her favorite grandson comes home and tells her something. Okay, I'm gonna call it a spoiler. I don't know if it really is, but he comes home and so part of that backstory, which is why she puts it in there, but I still think you could weave it in better. But part of that backstory is that one of her sons was married, and he and his wife divorced. His wife is living in London, he's in India, and their children are living with her. This grandson, now the wife was much younger than her husband. She's just a little bit older than this grandson, and this grandson comes home to tell her that he's going to marry his uncle's ex-wife. And she is livid and panicking. She's supposed to be leaving the house to him, and he knows that he's not going to get it. But the course of true love, we will do this thing. And then it's just this unfolding of family secrets and what do we do? Do we stay true to ourselves or to what is true? And do we make hard decisions for the benefit of ourselves, or do we make hard decisions for the benefit of others? How do we honor God in our decisions? All of these things are in here, and it's really good. I was livid when I read that I was like, what? And I was like, why are you doing this? But at the time she wrote this book, divorce being that, quote, easy, wasn't common. It wasn't, people weren't used to this even being a problem, but it had started to become one. And so because of that, she addressed it. And I love that she addressed it, even though I don't want it to be something that needs to be addressed. And I think that was kind of my problem for a little bit. But it was really, really good. It was really, really hard. And I love her son, Hillary, so much. I want him to have his own. There's 3 books in here. I better get more Hillary because he was my favorite character. Absolutely loved Hillary. He was awesome. But even characters I didn't like in here, I learned to care about by the time it was done. There's a line in here, it's the only thing I tabbed, but there's a line in here that says, confession is often, not always, often, a rather selfish luxury, I think. And yeah, I kind of agree with her on this one. Confession would have been hurtful with there would have been no reason. So there was that. And then next I read Every Trick in the Book. So in this one, so we're back at the Rose Cottage bookstore and the Rose Cottage Book Club. And it was kind of interesting. So what I really loved about this book was that in here, I don't know, I think I gave it, it's not on here because it's not in, Annie's books don't have ISBN. So if someone hasn't gone to the trouble to get it into Goodreads database, there's nowhere to leave a review. But I think I would give it 3.5, 4 stars. Surprisingly, I kind of feel like it's just kind of okay. It's a good okay. I want to read more, so that's good. There were things about it I really, really, really liked. One of the things is, so in here, you've got this lawyer that's just moved into town, and the lawyer has a woman come in who wants to sue her son-in-law for defamation of character. And the reason is the son-in-law is a stand-up comic whose entire routine isn't just about mother-in-law jokes, which would be kind of hurtful enough. They're all pokes at her in particular, so much that when she's in a restaurant, she notices that she's got dog hair on her in a place where people are eating food. She pulls out a lint roller and gets it off because that's just kind of gross, right? Someone walks up to her and says, "Oh, are you Stella? I saw this thing. Can I get a picture with you?" I mean, come on. And so that whole thing that happened there was really, really good. And also there's a mystery. Someone dies and they're trying to figure out who did it. That to me was really obvious. But there were little elements that I didn't like at first until I did. There were little elements of that mystery that were actually pretty cool. And I have to give Tara Johnson a lot of credit for it. But I don't know. I'm not sorry I read it. Really glad I read it. Want to read the next one. But I expected to really, really love this one. And I just kind of liked it. I did like, it feels like there was a little more faith in this one than the last one, if I recall correctly. Can't remember. But yeah, glad I read it. I will, as soon as I find, these are really new. So I haven't found used copies. And the only way to get them new is through Annie's. And the only way to do that is to subscribe. I do not want to subscribe. I already own 2. I don't want more. So I'm just waiting to find a third one available. And then I will get it. And I will probably read it. I don't know if I'll keep the series. But I'll wait until I get them all before I get rid of them, I think. Then I can decide. But whatever. And then last night I finished Fox. Now I started this on the 5th of November. Because I remembered to. Sorry. This book, guys, I expected to like it. I expected to love it. But I didn't expect the depth of it. And the reason I didn't expect the depth was because using the whole color magic thing that they do in here, every person has this color they bond to and that they can control. This is how the world is. There's a plague. It is a stone plague. Instead of like the bubonic plague, it is a stone plague. And then you've got people, they're keepers or igniters. And the keepers are trying to keep the purity of this white light, straight laced or whatever. They want to keep to it. They don't want to exploit it. The igniters want to embrace all of it. And the keepers think they want to control it. The igniters want to have the fullness of this magic from this white light. And then because all the colors work through that somehow. And then, so keepers and igniters, you've got Protestants and Catholics. And this is the time of King James where the Catholic persecution was a big thing. So, and then you've got this white light itself. And the white light will speak to people. And it will draw people to them. But the people can resist it if they choose to. And I mean, there are clear parallels, but I think the strength of it, so because of all that though, I thought it wasn't going to be as deep. This book handles race and even kind of somewhat women's issues, political things, religious divisions. There's so much, and it should just be kind of a nod to each thing, but instead they're really woven in well. I was really impressed by that. And it's just so much deeper, because when you take that whole Catholic Protestant argument and you pull it outside of what we know already. So we know the gunpowder plot. We know that they planned to blow up Parliament. We know that Guy Fawkes got caught with the powder. We know all these things. So when you pull what we know out and we add in a different twist on it, instead of Protestants and Catholics, we have Keeper, Igniter. Because we're seeing it from outside, we can see that both Keeper and Igniter, Catholic, Protestant, were clinging to their own ideas of faith rather than to the Lord himself. And that is where the danger of that division was. And it was just really, really good. I loved it, gave it 5 stars. And because of that, and you know, this is Thomas Nelson. I had the idea this was Enclave. This feels like an Enclave book. But it's Nelson, and the faith in here is so strong. And yet, if you think about it, it's really not talking God per se. But it also might be, I wonder if it's before 2018. I don't know when the copyright is. Not 2018. That explains a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Romanov does, because I saw Romanov mentioned. And Romanov would have been in the works by this point anyway, if it's in the back of the book. So it will probably still have a strong faith element. I'm telling you, for Thomas Nelson, 2018 is the dividing line for a lot of their authors. So I'm glad to know that this is like this. But now I want to read Romanov and see if I like it as much. What do you think? Am I going to? Hope so. Anyway, but yeah, that's what I've read so far this month. Only 4 physical copies done. I've got a bunch in process. I should have 2, 3 done this week for sure. So I'm, and then I've got several more to go. Yeah. But I also have to get my Clock Tower Bound, my next book strings book done. So, it's coming along. It's going really well. I wrote, guys, so I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and this time, I always like to challenge myself with NaNoWriMo. So this time I decided to challenge myself by making myself dictate a story. So I'm dictating the entire book. It is garbage, guys. I'm telling you, I didn't think I'd be able to salvage anything. But I went to get my daughter's mail while she was gone on Saturday. I went over to her house to get a package that was left. And on the way over and on the way home, I did the day's story. Wow. I wrote a really cool story. It's just kind of like one chapter of this book, but it's just telling about a book. This person is discussing this book and the story of the book. And I sent it to my number 7 daughter, who's the artist. And I was like, I want to create a picture book for adults about books and about how adults value books and on all the stuffness. And she's like, okay, so we're going to do it. We're going to make this an actual book. It's kind of weird. So now I have to weave that into, whatever. But I'm having so much fun writing right now that I am slower reading. But that's okay, because that's, my job is to do the right thing, but to do the right thing. Kind of like that. But anyway, what you been reading? Am I going to like Romanov if I liked Fawkes? Tell me the things. Tell me the things. This is what we've got as far as physical copies. It's pretty cool. But of all of these, as much as I loved Fox, and it is a stunningly beautiful cover, this, hands down, my favorite. No doubt about it. It's not even remotely a question. So yeah, there you have it. I will be back Thursday to talk about something. Because books and something and talking. I'll see you later.